Welcome to your community of fee-for-service financial advisors who are successfully building profitable firms that serve the next generation of clients. You'll learn from innovative advisors whose unique stories will inspire you to dream big and take action on your goals. Are you ready to live your great life and help clients live theirs? Then you're in the right place.
Hello and welcome to this episode of XYPN Radio. I'm your host, Alan Moore, and today I'm excited to welcome XYPN member Patrick Clark, founder of Neshaminy Creek Advisors, a fee-only firm specializing in volunteer firefighting companies and their firefighters in Pennsylvania. Patrick has been in the industry for almost 30 years, starting out on the investment side of the business before getting introduced to financial planning through a friend and eventual business partner. He launched his own firm 4 years ago with just one volunteer firefighting company, but has quickly grown. Patrick shared how his niche is starting to compound with referrals from existing clients, referrals from an accounting firm that also exclusively specializes in the same niche, and the firefighters themselves. His story is just such a great example of why having a niche truly is so powerful. You can find any of the resources and links mentioned during the episode, a transcript, and more at XYPlanningNetwork.com/337. Without further ado, here's my interview with Patrick. Thanks for being a listener of XYPN Radio. We want to hear from you about what you want to hear from us. What types of guests do you want to learn from next? What topics or pain points are you craving insights on? Go to XYPlanningNetwork.com/radio survey to fill out a short survey telling us what and who you want to hear from on XYPN Radio. That's XYPlanningNetwork.com/radio survey. Hey, Patrick, welcome to the show, man. Thanks so much for being on.
Alan, thank you for having me.
So I am super excited to dig in on just your journey, the firm that you've built and having a ton of success early on, and a really cool niche working with firefighting, let's say volunteer firefighter companies. Is that correct? Yes. Okay. Yes. And I know nothing about that community. So I am, as always, interested in learning more and sharing your expertise with our listeners. So just to kick things off, can you give me a little bit sort of your baseball card in terms of your career history and what ultimately has led up to you starting your own financial planning firm?
Okay, so I very much started off working within community from the get-go of my career. I unlike a lot of other XYPNers, I'm a lifer in the investment and financial field. I came right out of school. I interned, if anyone remembers, the old Dean Witter firm.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Which is now part of Morgan Stanley. I started out as an intern there and went immediately after graduating college back in 1993 to a small investment firm in the Philadelphia area. I'm based out of Philly, Bucks County in Philadelphia, and at our small little firm, we were focusing on public pension plans in Pennsylvania. So I worked with a lot of police officers and municipal employees with the pension plans here in Pennsylvania. I started out doing that. So I came from an investment background, not from a financial planning background. So that's very important with my journey.
Sure.
Is being from the investment management background, because I still actually manage investments directly myself instead of using a TAMP or anything like that. So. And I was there for a number of years, and come the financial crisis in 07, 08, that business changed a lot. It went from small individual firms being able to go to the police pension board or the municipal pension board and pitching our strategies to the big firm consultants stepping in and being in between. And essentially, if you were a small firm of, at the time we were 150 million, if you didn't have $1 billion, $2 billion of assets under management, these bigger pension consulting firms said, we don't care what your performance is. We don't care what your risk management is. We don't care what your strategy is. You're gone. We're bringing in State Street. We're bringing in Vanguard. We're bringing on all these other firms.
Was that regulatory or just defensive and trying to avoid, I guess, being accused of taking too much risk?
It initially started at bringing the consultants. The consultants came in initially as a lot of a CYA type of strategy for the pension trustees to have that. And in some ways it's good because it was bringing in a fiduciary aspect to it.
Sure.
In other ways it was bad because, again, It didn't matter how big or small you were. It didn't matter how successful you were from a performance standpoint. If you were small, you were out.
Okay.
Because in the big consulting world, especially at the time, if State Street or Vanguard or you name the big firm had a bad year, well, they're the big firm, they know what they're doing. If you were a small firm like ours and you had a bad year, how dare you hire an unproven product?
That makes sense. And now, I mean, I'd be interested to know what those minimums are now, since 10 billion seems to be the old 1 billion. So it really is. And to your point, it does make sense, but it also makes it very difficult for innovators to come into that type of space when you lock out anything less than huge.
And we at that point in time, we had been around for 15 years and we were beating the benchmarks by a decent amount of money on an annualized basis, but it didn't matter. At that point, I went to another firm that was kind of being a quasi outsourced CIO for smaller to mid-sized institutions. And I was brought on to kind of help grow that side of the company's business.
Okay.
It didn't pan out. Then I moved on to a friend of mine who had started his own firm, and he said, "Hey, come do whatever you want," And that's when I started working with individuals and nonprofits, which include in Pennsylvania includes the volunteer fire companies.
Okay, so that was an RIA. Were they doing financial planning already, or primarily asset management?
My friend who he was already doing financial planning.
Okay,
so that was actually now we're up to like 2012 at this point. I'd been in business since 1993. I'd been doing strictly investment management that entire time. I was not doing any financial planning, financial advising at all. Most of my clients were institutions,
right?
So
which is totally different.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you knew what financial planning was coming from that side of the industry, or was it sort of, financial planning, financial advice, investment advice was all synonymous until you really got into that firm and saw it?
It was kind of all synonymous until I got in there and saw it. And my friend, even though he's the same age as I am, I'm 50 now. He did not come. He was not a lifer at that time. He had been in the business maybe 4 or 5 years before he went on his own. And he was in a bank channel prior to moving to himself. So he came from a financial planning training basis. So I learned a lot from him.
Absolutely.
But at that time, we had very low minimums at the firm, and I was learning this. He was learning some stuff from me from an investment management standpoint. But we reached a point where most of my client base was working class, blue collar workers, small nonprofits, volunteer fire companies, a handful of volunteer fire companies. I'm still not in the niche quite yet at this point.
Okay.
He decided that he was ready to have $1 million minimum. So that was not simpatico between my business, my book of business, and his book of business. But unlike many financial advisor firms, when you get to that point, it wasn't like this volatile breakup. We were friends. We're still good friends, and I was not into. So the 2 prior firms I was with, we were straight RIAs. This firm was a hybrid.
Okay.
So I had to go get my insurance license. I had to get my 7. I never even had my 7. I only had my 65.
And 7's no joke. That's a tough test.
Years. I had to go get my 7. I had to get my insurance license. And in the 7 years I was with him, I can tell you I used my insurance license 5 times.
A lot of work to not do much business.
Commissionable business the whole time. So because I wasn't a big fan of it. But at the time, the $1 million minimum, so our businesses were going in different directions.
Yeah.
And we actually put together a 1-year plan for me to figure out what my next step was going to be. And that's how I came about researching and finding XY, and being able to not have to be in a rush to start my own firm. I knew I wanted to start my own firm, but I didn't know what form it was going to look like.
That's fair.
And having that backstop of being able to plan it out. And that's when, I got approved late in I guess 2017. No, yeah, 2017. And my doors opened April 1st of 2018. So April Fool's Day is my anniversary date every year.
I love that.
And at that time, I was starting to gain a little bit more traction with the volunteer fire companies. And one of the reasons why volunteer fire companies became a niche of mine is my family, not myself, but my brother, is actually the 7th generation volunteer firefighter in our family.
Wow. Seventh generation.
I grew up around volunteer firefighters. I grew up in a very blue collar working class community. And so when I started on my own, I decided I was going to focus a little bit more on the volunteer firefighter niche. I was going to have no investment minimums, and doing a little bit more financial planning than I had been before.
That's fair.
Most of my clients don't need advanced tax strategies. They don't need advanced estate strategies. So for me, working on basic financial advice is a sweet spot for me when I'm working with individuals.
That's fair. Some of those foundational topics.
Right.
Just going back to when you decided to, sort of your businesses were starting to diverge. So you were able to stay at that firm for that year while you were planning and
Yes.
sort of getting your RIA ready. Okay.
And I know it's unusual. So
yeah, I bet say that is a dream. I think a lot of listeners are going to be throwing something at a wall, wishing they had that opportunity, which, it goes to show why it's so important to have that great relationship and open, honest communication. And for some folks, that's a path they can take. For others, not. But shout out and kudos to your previous partner for facilitating that, because to your point, that's breaking up with a business partner is messier than a divorce. And it can be a lot more complicated. It can be a lot harder, and just but the emotions are just as high. So really cool way to be able to do it.
And it also allowed me. I was because he was having this $1 million minimum. I was able to bring over. I was able to bring over with me all the clients that I wanted to take with me.
Okay.
So I was again. I had already been in the business at that point for 25 years. So I was able to bring in business already from the get-go. So I wasn't starting from absolute scratch, but in terms of who and what I was marketing to, I was.
That makes sense. So talk to me about volunteer firefighter companies. So when you hear the word volunteer and you don't normally hear volunteer and company in the same sentence. Normally when you think of volunteer, you think of nonprofit. So just what are these companies so I can understand them?
So, I mean, there a number of states are structured this way, but Pennsylvania is one of the more unique states in how the fire service is structured within the country. I mean, there are other states that have this similar structure, but not exactly the same. In Pennsylvania, other than the big cities, so Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Scranton, Harrisburg, other than the bigger cities in Pennsylvania, all the volunteer fire companies across the state are separate 501c3 organizations. They're not part of municipal government at all. They're volunteer and they're volunteer driven. Now, so there's a lot of input from the local municipality, but they're not part of municipal government.
So in most states, what you're saying is that the firefighters are technically employees of the city.
In many states, yeah, or the county in some cases. So
why did Pennsylvania set it up that way? Is it cheaper, I guess, to have these outside companies doing it?
Well, first, Pennsylvania's a commonwealth.
Fair.
So it's part of that whole commonwealth type of system.
Okay.
Now there are non-commonwealth states that have a similar system, but and Pennsylvania is very what's the word I want to put to it? It's very, very decentralized. Because a lot of states, like Maryland is one of them that's close to us. For the most part, the fire departments, the police departments are all run at the county level as opposed to the municipal level. In Pennsylvania, every little burg and borough and township has its own police department as well. And why the pension market is valuable in Pennsylvania is because every single one of them can have their own pension plan too, as opposed to the county or the state running their plan.
So a lot of small plans.
Right. Pennsylvania actually has something ridiculous, like 45% of all the pension plans, of all the public pension plans in the country. Because
Wow.
every little,
Just
because
has
every
that
little
many
town
of
can
them.
have their own.
Wow. How are these companies funded? So you said they're 501c3.
So, okay,
So they're
let's go back to the fire companies. Get away from the police departments again. Yeah, so the fire companies, there are actually two separate nonprofits that sit side by side to each other. One is the fire company. Think of them as the operating company. They own the building, the trucks, all the capital stuff. And under their auspices, that's where they go out and do the first responder work. They fundraise. They do all the typical fundraisers that you think of when you think of fire companies. The flower sales, the pancake breakfasts,
so they're out hustling for
the
funding.
mailers, the mailers that you get and stuff like that. And then next to them is a thing called the Relief Association. And the Relief Association is set up to take care of the health and welfare of the membership. Now, that's a very broad term. What does that mean? Well, that basically means anything that's not tied down or nailed down in the firehouse. So it pays for safety equipment, safety classes. If you go into a typical firehouse, you'll find recreational equipment, beds, and food and a kitchen and stuff like that if there's a crew there overnight and stuff like that. It pays for all that kind of stuff. Okay. One of my companies actually does they self-fund life insurance policies for the members from the Relief Association. And that the Relief Association does not fundraise. They actually get a pro rata based on the values of the properties in their coverage area and the population of their coverage area. They get a pro rata funding from the state.
Okay.
And it's funded by surcharges on foreign insurance policies. So insurance policies that are not written by insurance companies based in Pennsylvania.
Interesting.
So
does the relief nonprofit help fund the building nonprofit, or?
So the relief, they can't give money directly to the fire company.
Okay.
They have to loan money to the fire company if the fire company wants money, if the fire company needs money for the building or the trucks or whatever. But it's usually the fire company will fundraise on their own and get special loans and stuff like that from the state or from a bank for those things.
Very interesting, because what that means is that the firefighters, and you said health and welfare and all of that, they're covered by the state, but they're not actually the state isn't funding firehouses, fire trucks, all of that, which is
correct.
That is super unique. So is the relief, that relief nonprofit isn't allowed to buy trucks and that sort of thing?
They're not allowed to buy those things. They can loan the company things and they're actually audited automatically every 2 years by the state auditor general to make sure that there's no shenanigans going on. Because back way back in the day, the Relief Association would say loan the fire company $200,000 for a truck and then forgive the loan.
Well, that's very nice of them.
So the audit makes sure that those shenanigans, because the money is meant for to directly affect the members.
Okay.
Not to benefit the company necessarily.
So then who is your client? Are you working with both of these nonprofits?
I work with both sides.
Okay.
I manage the investments for them on both sides.
It seems like the relief nonprofit would be the one with larger amounts to invest and such, just if the other one is having to out hustle for.
It depends on the company and what their priorities are.
Okay.
There's some companies where the priorities are the toys.
Of course.
So they go out and they spend on the fire company side all the money that they fundraise and stuff like that on a constant basis on the toys. And so then they have a larger relief amount. And then there are some companies that they focus on the memberships, on the members. And so on the fundraising side, on the company side, they wind up stockpiling until they actually need the money. But on the relief side, they're making sure that the members get all the perks and benefits of being a volunteer firefighter. And so they wind up spending a lot of money there. And again, it also depends on the demographic of their coverage area. A wealthy, well-to-do neighborhood may have a lot of money on both sides.
Sure.
And
is there any crossover of staff between these nonprofits, or are they?
They're usually the same board.
Okay.
It's the membership that.
Yeah.
It's the membership that are the people that fight the fires and get on the trucks and all that kind of stuff.
Fascinating.
So they're sister nonprofits, and said more often than not they're the same board. But like the president of the fire company may be the vice president of the relief, and
Okay.
More often than not, the only person that's the same is usually the treasurer.
Okay. So they have at least some level of
stability.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, because how did you get into this niche? I mean, you said your brother's or brother-in-law is seventh generation, which takes us back to early 1800s, maybe 17
mid 1800s. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a long time. So, I guess how did you?
Pennsylvania is an old state.
And I'm
in the Philadelphia area, which makes it even older.
So I guess how did you sort of find your first client in this niche? Like, what led you to your first the volunteer firefighting company?
Well, it was my hometown that I grew up in, and they were coming across their CDs they had a round of CDs maturing, and they were like, "Oh, can we get better than at the time 2.5% in the CDs?" And we just started an investment program and went from there, and eventually got to the point where they have no CDs at all. Mm-hmm. A lot of these fire companies up until recently, CDs was their investment program. Like there wasn't a lot of sophistication in how they were managing assets and stuff like that. So, I mean, since there's a lot of spending in these plans, I do more often than not keep 2 to 3 years of their spending in cash or short-term bond funds, but to keep it liquid, we kind of stay away from the CDs now, and then do longer-term investments with the rest. But that's how it started. Was basically there was an interest in my hometown company, and in this niche, once you get in, and you do a good job for them, it excuse the pun, it spreads like wildfire.
Sure. Tight-knit community.
Yeah. So one company talked to another company, and then it also trickled down too, where I would start getting the members asking me if I can help them with their personal financial situation and investments. So
the work you're doing for
that started about 7 years ago.
Okay. So it's been 7 years. Okay. So the work you're doing for the companies themselves is very institutional management, right? Like it's managing the pension funds. Are you?
Well, no pension funds.
Oh, sorry. So I guess, what all services are you providing the company itself?
So I manage the investments for the company. I provide 3 fiduciary policies, an IPS, a spending policy. So we're figure out, okay, when is this money actually going to get spent and for what purpose? And then lastly, and this is more for the fire company side, because the relief association side, it's already prescribed how it happens, a contribution policy.
And what is that?
How are they going to receive money from a fundraising aspect?
Okay.
Because there's a lot of times I've had other nonprofits as clients over my career, and it's one of those things. Okay, if someone's going to put themselves in their life insurance policy as part of their estate planning, that's easy. That's cash. You don't need that much difficulty in doing it. Or if they're going to name you as a beneficiary in their IRA or something like that. But if they're going to start getting to things like donating vehicles or property, or now you need to start talking about, well, is this something you actually want to receive as a direct contribution, or do you want to politely either decline it or ask the estate to sell it off first,
Right.
and get the cash? I had one instance where it wasn't a client of mine, but I was on the board of my local YMCA, and before I was on the board, about 20 years ago, they had accepted a piece of real estate in upstate Pennsylvania as a bequeathment when one of their members passed away, and took it sight unseen. And after they took it and they started looking into it, they discovered that there used to be a gas station on the property.
It's environmental
the land was cleared, but the tanks were still in the ground. And fortunately, the cost of remediation got them to break even on the property.
Oh, goodness.
Well, I say fortunately because it could have been much worse. They could have wound up underwater on it very easily. But if they had some kind of contribution policy in place, they would have been required to investigate the property before accepting it as a gift.
Got it. So it really is to protect them.
Yeah, in this case, they either would have declined it or politely asked the estate to liquidate it first before giving them the money. So those are the three fiduciary policies that I at the company and institutional level I offer to those clients. So
okay, yeah, that's fantastic. It's a good reminder for folks when you're working with your clients on estate planning, is to make the estate the one who has to sell the cars and the houses and that sort of thing and donate cash. But obviously, there are reasons to donate high or low basis property and stock and things like that. But so the other thing you mentioned was that the relief company has to go through an audit every 2 years. Is that a process that you're helping them with? Because that seems like a pretty significant burden.
Yeah. So I'm kind of the second level of audit. So when the auditor from the Auditor General comes in to talk to the Relief Association, they more often sit down with the Relief Association officers and their accounting firm first.
Okay.
Because there's other aspects of the Relief Association that's not investment related. So they go through talking about all the processes and all that kind of stuff first. And then I wind up talking to, usually over the phone, not in person, with the auditor, and they do an audit of the investments over the previous 2 years.
You're working with the same
to make sure, it's really just to make sure that they're A, diversified, and B, not shuffling assets back and forth and taking money out of the investments and then not replacing it unless there's a reason. So they're looking at these fiduciary policies, like particularly the IPS and the spending policy, to confirm what's the activity in the portfolio itself. So
how many of these firefighting companies are you working with?
A dozen.
Okay.
Most of them have come since I joined XY 4 years ago.
Okay.
When I joined XY, I decided to focus on the niche. So
yeah, I was curious because that means you're seeing the same auditors, 6 times a year, effectively 12 times every 2 years. And I'm curious if they start to, if they're actually happy that you're there versus they probably see some messes, and just if that. It feels like that would start to be a benefit that the auditors, I'm assuming you're getting clean audits and getting through those well, and that now you're prepared, how they work. You've done tons of them, so if that's a big benefit to you and to the auditor.
Yeah, the auditor generally sees a benefit that there's a financial advisor there, and that there are policies in place. Again. Somewhat, the auditors also say, when it's just CDs, it's easy too.
Sure.
But where it gets murky for the auditor is when the fire company or the Relief Association has decided to start investing, but they're trying to do it internally. the treasurer is the one like kind of like picking the funds, and which really means they're just looking at Money Magazine or something like that, or like investing in whatever his personal financial advisor has for him in his IRA or 401k. So that's the benefit of the company having a financial advisor on their side as opposed to trying to do it themselves. It's just eliminating that murkiness. And again, it's also just like any nonprofit. I view that there's if you're managing it internally with someone who's not a professional, or or if you're hiring like a board member's advisor or something like that who doesn't have experience working at the institutional level, I see it as a conflict of interest.
Sure.
Because if something happens and you have to fire that person, that can get ugly.
Right.
So.
Okay. No, that makes a lot of sense. I was curious about the auditor side because I was just looking at some statistics. We've registered 1,100 RIAs now at XY Planning Network. And so, you can divide that by 50 states and guess the ones based on population that we've done a whole bunch in. And it's a number you can't really calculate the value of, but the regulators get used to seeing our people, and talking to our compliance consultants that are helping with the initial registration process. And it really does streamline. They're not digging as deep because they trust that, we know what we're doing. Whereas when advisor shows up on their own, I find the regulators can be very skeptical of whether or not they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
So that makes a lot of sense. So you've got a dozen firefighting companies that you're working with. Tell me about the services that you're providing the firefighters themselves, because you said that they're now starting to come to you. That's a pretty traditional financial planning relationship?
It's a much more traditional financial planning relationship because again, we're now dealing with individuals, and we're dealing with individuals from all walks of life. What makes the niche part is this volunteer firefighter affinity group. They all belong, the community they all belong to. That's where the niche comes in, because they're doctors, accountants, they're ditch diggers, there are nurses, there's retirees. Who they are, what they do outside of the volunteer firefighting world is all over the map. So, but it is much more of a more basic financial planning relationship. I would say 75% of them are blue collar, middle class workers. Some are business owners, a lot of tradesmen.
Sure.
In this, and a lot of them, they happen to work for small businesses who are very, very much accommodative of them being volunteers.
Yeah.
So I mean, some of these towns still have the whistle that goes on, when there's a call. So the business owner will turn and say, "All right, go. I'll see you. We'll take care of it."
Oh, that's awesome.
I mean, a lot of them here in Pennsylvania, a lot of them have some of the whistles still exist, but a lot of them have gotten rid of them, and everything goes on their cell phone now. But so there's a lot of self starters within the community, whether they work for someone else or they work for themselves. A lot of self starters. So, and again, because it's mostly middle class, working class, we're doing very basic financial advisory planning stuff. We're not doing advanced tax strategies or advanced estate planning strategies. It's, let's figure out how you're going to save for retirement, for your kids to go to college, or whatever you want to save for. I started using FEX recently to delve into their 401ks at a deeper level, instead of them showing me their menu and then telling them to go do it. I can do it now.
It probably should say FEX now Pantera.
Yeah, now Pantera. I keep forgetting what the name.
I struggle to remember that. They just rebranded. Very cool. So one of the other things,
but actually, worse than just them giving me the menu is a lot of times they just talk to the buddy in the cab of the truck with them, and they do whatever their buddy's doing, even though their situation is completely different.
Right. As if their buddy even is making the right choices for their own situation. So,
yeah.
One of the things that you'd mentioned, and I saw some of, was you have a very active Facebook Live marketing strategy. So can you talk about sort of how that came to be and what that marketing channel is at this point?
Yeah, so I started the firm in April of 2018. I always wanted to do something that was more proactive and get more engaged online with social media. And I'd been dragging my feet on it and dragging my feet on it and dragging my feet on it. And then I would say, and then over the Christmas, over the New Year's from 2019 to 2020, we went down to Disney World as a family. So my wife, my kids, my in-laws. But while I was down there, I started having an issue with my foot. My foot blew up the size of two times the size of a balloon. And my father-in-law, who's a doctor, looked at it and thought it was gout. And a few weeks later, after we came back, the swelling had not gone away yet. And so we went in and had X-rays taken of it and stuff like that. And it turned out I had some broken bones in my foot and stuff like that, and some deformity in my foot that was not there before. And it turned out that I have a thing called Charcot syndrome, which is a extreme version of falling arches.
Okay.
And in that syndrome, all the bone, this is the 30-second version of this. Okay. All the bones in your ankle and foot fuse together, and all the cartilage and stuff like that disappears. And so I had to go in early February of 2020 for surgery, put rods and pins and all that kind of stuff in my foot. And so we're in January here, thinking about, okay, what am I going to do to maintain my business? Because I have a high touch. I go to a lot of networking meetings. I go to all my clients, which is why I work from my house instead of an office, because I go to most of my clients almost all the time.
Okay.
How am I going to maintain the business and grow the business while I'm 3 months of non-weight bearing on my right foot? So we brought my whole office from the bedroom here, which was the fourth bedroom, which I'm in right now, all the way down to the TV room of the basement of the house, rather. So hospital bed, TV room, bathroom, and my office is in the TV room. And I start learning Zoom and all the technology and all that kind of stuff. Prep my clients that I'm going to be not weight bearing. All our contact is going to be digitally and stuff like that. I teach myself all this. I go into surgery mid-February of 2020. No one knows what's going to happen yet at this point, right?
Sure.
And I come out of surgery. I'm in the hospital for a week. I come back, and I'm like, all right, now I'm going to start doing the videos that I decided to do. Again, not knowing if it was going to be successful or not. I start doing them. I'm not getting much traction on them, even from my clients that know they're out here. And I do it every morning at 9:30 on Facebook Live. I figure out a topic to talk about. Now we're at the point where, like, most of the topics self-generate from questions that come about.
Makes sense.
But then a funny thing happened 3 weeks after I started doing this. The whole rest of the world came down to my level.
Yep. COVID hit.
The whole world came down to my level. And as much as COVID is a bad, horrible thing, for my business, it was a fantastic thing.
Quite frankly, we have a lot of members. I would say most of our members would say the same thing with a twinge of guilt when they say it, that we don't ever want to imply COVID was good, but for the business, but most of our members, and some of that was just based on, we do ask for that members are able to serve clients virtually. And we are so proactive about, having a niche and all of that me and our advisors were well positioned for what happened with COVID. So I hear you that it wasn't a good thing, but it was a good thing for your business.
Yeah. I mean, in 2020, I doubled the amount of households that I served.
Wow.
In 2020.
And did a lot of that come from the Facebook Live?
A lot of that came from the Facebook Live, but also a lot of that came from the referrals from the existing companies that I already had at the time. And I had about 5 of them at that time. Okay.
So you went from 5 to 12 in the last 2 years.
Right. And it got to the point, and then 2021, the marketing directly to the niche really started kicking in. And from I would say in 2021 and thus far in 2022, 75% of my new households are either the volunteer fire company organizations or they're people affiliated with those organizations.
Okay. So the Facebook Live marketing is still geared towards that niche. It's not, super broad based. Like it's still focused on that niche.
It's still fun. I mean, I don't talk about the fire company. I talk about how I work with fire companies and volunteer firefighters, but the topics are more generic than that. But yeah,
sure.
Most of the people that are signed up, a lot of the people in my Facebook social network are related somehow to the volunteer fire services and stuff like that. And now we're at the point now where I'm actually changing my website to have it focus more on the niche. It's not up yet. I actually have a call with my web designer as soon as we're done here.
Okay.
To our third, I think it's our third call. So
maybe we should bring them on and hear about web design. No, that makes perfect sense. And quite frankly, it's really scary to update your website to just really call out the niche. And we have a lot of members, and sometimes we'll have them on the show where, the folks are talking about their niche and I go to their website and I'm like, do you really have this niche? Like, I don't see anything about it.
Well, if you go to my website, there's a button that you can click if you're a fire company.
Okay.
But we're going to change that. We're like, that's going to be the focus on the website as opposed to generic website,
Sure. No, that makes sense. Yeah. I mean,
frankly, in the 4 years, I don't think I've gotten any business from my website.
Well, and that makes sense. If they're going to your website for validation of like, all right, this is the guy for firefighting companies. And it's like, wait, is he the guy? Because I don't see anything here. I can imagine that the website update will be a big boom for your business.
Yeah. And we have plans right now the plans right now is that the niche is going to become an even larger piece of my business, hopefully close to exclusive, because of certain things going on. I hooked up with an accounting firm that's local to me here, but they do the accounting work for 40% of the fire companies across the state of Pennsylvania.
Wow. So that's their niche.
Yeah, that's their niche.
Okay.
In fact, they don't have any other clients other than volunteer fire companies and relief associations.
So do you have a referral, like a fee arrangement with them, or you're the guy, so you're forming a partnership?
They don't want fees outside of their accounting fees.
Okay. So, good for them. That's, I hate that when they're like, all right, like you're the guy and we'll take 20% of revenue. Right. No. And again, it's the power of a niche. And once that ball starts rolling, it starts rolling really fast where, now you have firefighting companies, you got a dozen that are out there talking about you. You now have an accounting firm that knows you do good work. And so now they want you working with their clients. Now the auditors know who you are. And if I try to move to Pennsylvania and break into this niche, good luck. That's a tough one to break into now.
Well, yeah. And then there's a new program that was just passed by the state legislature to help the fire companies with retention and recruitment. It's a program called LOSAP, Length of Service Award Program, which exists in other states. Mm-hmm. But it's new here to Pennsylvania. And what it is essentially is it's kind of like a 401k or 403b for volunteer firefighters.
Okay.
So like they don't put any money into it because they're not paid, but the company does. And it's there for retention and recruitment because across the country, the volunteer fire service is dying at the vine in terms of getting new members.
Sure.
And keeping new members. Like they can get a ton of new members, but then they can't keep them.
Right. That makes sense.
And that's going to be big. And I'm getting an exclusive with Lincoln Financial. Lincoln Financial is probably the biggest provider of this type of account across the country. And I've hooked up with Lincoln Financial to they're going to do all the back end stuff. I just show up to the fire company.
Right. And be able to provide the service.
Provide the the asset allocation for the members. And again, that can lead to me working more with the companies and with other members on outside stuff. So
I love it. I love a good niche. I tell you what, man, this is like
part of the niche becomes sticky.
Yeah. And especially it's just an extra layer of service that you're able to provide these companies, which makes a lot of sense that that's something they're going to want to be providing their members for retention and that sort of thing. Are they required to offer this new plan, or it's just an option?
No, it's just an option. It's brand new. It's not a requirement.
I mean, quite frankly, I'd say even better, because then you get to show up and say, hey, this is a new thing. This is how it works. Like, and I'm the one who can actually make this happen for you, because they're not, if it was required, there are, everyone sort of goes all in to figure it out. If it's not, so like, I don't know. Who knows how to do this? No one knows. Like, let's not worry about it.
Yeah, and what's going to probably happen is the first movers on this are probably going to be companies that have a little bit of extra cash in their coffers already, and then eventually it'll kind of trickle down to other companies.
Yeah, they'll have to stay competitive.
Yeah, and it's not a huge boom. Like, it's like the max is like $3,000 per member, and they don't have to go to the max.
Sure.
So it's not a huge boon, but it's something to help the members stay in the service.
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. So yeah, I mean, I love to know sort of what's next for you. Sounds like focusing there, doubling down on the niche with this new accountant center of influence. Anything else sort of on the horizon for you that you're going to be focused on?
Well, it's those three things: the accountant, the LoSAP program, and the website. That's the next thing going on right now. I've been doing a lot of email marketing as well, but I'm the next stage is doing a paper and ink newsletter. So nothing digitally. That'll only go to clients and my networking partners. So it'll be a more expansive type of newsletter. Instead of like a 3 or 4 page digital newsletter, it'll probably be like 10 or 12 pages.
Okay. How frequently?
What's that?
Monthly. How frequently? A monthly? Okay.
And the content will be exclusive to those people that get it. So that content won't be available on my Facebook Live. It won't be available on the website. It won't be available, in the email marketing I do.
Okay. So ongoing value add for clients. I'll be interested to hear from you once you get going on that, on just sort of how that's received, because it's, sometimes what's old is new again. Bell bottoms are back, I hear, the people really are going back in some ways to more physical, tangible type deliverables, and so I'll be interested to hear how that goes.
And the tangible, it'll stick around their house longer, or their place of business or whatever. And I'll also be able to talk more about my partners in it.
Yep.
Like the health benefits guy.
They can even provide content for you to help fill in the newsletter. Yeah,
my health benefits guy, my P&C guy that I refer to, even like the electrician that I use.
No, it makes sense
for the benefits of my clients and other networking partners. So
okay,
and just again, as most people who are into referral networking know, 75% of your referrals come from existing clients. They don't come from your marketing and stuff like that.
Absolutely. All right. Well, for anyone who used to listen to the podcast when I was the host, and if you listened to our last episode, you know that I missed asking our guest my final question that I always used to ask. And I as soon as we were done, I was like, I should have asked the question. So I will bring it back here, and that is, if there's one piece of advice that you wish you could go back and give your younger self, whether that was you when you were thinking about launching the RIA or getting into the industry or anywhere in between, what do you think that one piece of advice would be?
Getting involved in my community earlier.
Community as in your niche, or community just broadly speaking? Community
more broadly speaking.
Okay.
So when I first got into the business, I had the idea of, I'm going to become the next $1 billion firm and, crush it. So that while I was working with pension funds and stuff like that, it was one of those things where, like, the little town with $200,000 in their pension fund, I'm going to pass them over because I'm shooting for this. I'm shooting for this town that has $50 million in their account, because you don't, if you're dealing with if you're dealing with the community, you're actually doing more good than just shooting for the biggest possible account you can get. And while you want big revenue, ignoring those smaller type of deals, the smaller type of clients, a lot of times you may be missing out on something much bigger.
Makes sense.
Because
all right, get
know
involved
who
early.
Frankly, those accounts that are smaller but can give you a lot of referrals, they actually wind up becoming stickier clients and more loyal clients for you. So for me, I got in the business in 1993, so there's a lot there. I would tell my 1993 self to be more involved in the community and not just chasing the biggest clients possible all the time.
All right. I love it. Well, Patrick, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show, share your journey to launching your own firm with us here at XYPN, and just a really cool niche that clearly you're the expert in helping these companies. So thank you for taking the time today.
You're welcome. And again, I'm sorry I'm not in the firehouse with the trucks in the background. And stuff.
That's all right.
That was the plan. It just didn't happen today. So
that is all right. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks for being a listener of XYPN Radio. We want to hear from you about what you want to hear from us. What types of guests do you want to learn from next? What topics or pain points are you craving insights on? Go to xyplanningnetwork.com/radio survey to fill out a short survey telling us what and who you want to hear from on XYPN Radio. That's xyplanningnetwork.com/radio survey. Also, be sure to go to xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP to join our private Facebook group for fee-for-service advisors. It's a community you've been looking for that's there to provide support no matter where you are in your journey. Best of all, it's free. Again, that's xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP.
Thanks for listening to XYPN Radio. If you enjoyed the show, please be sure to leave a review that will help grow the movement of fee-for-service advisors, serving next-gen clients and building the firms of their dreams. That's all for today's episode. Until next time.